Hi, Amanda here with Best Perception again. Um, I have decided to shift platforms and start a YouTube channel. I think that's going to be a little more conducive to longer videos as opposed to chopping them up on Instagram. So, Instagram, I apologize. You're going to have to go over to YouTube to find me. I'll still post links to it, but you're going to have to travel. And also, welcome, YouTube. Um, so today I would like to talk to you about comparison. I think it's important. I think we don't realize how much we do it, and we also don't realize how harmful it can be. I'm going to talk about two different types of comparison, upward comparison and downward comparison. Simple enough. First, I want to talk about upward comparison. That's the one I think we recognize that we do the most because it hits us, in a place that makes us feel kind of shitty. Um, that's when you look at somebody that you perceive as better than you, whether it's better than you as a whole or better than you at certain things. We do this when we look at people that we think are prettier than us. We do this when we think of people that are smarter, more successful, um, faster, better athletes, whatever. We compare ourselves to them and we come up short. The obvious downside to this is that we feel bad about ourselves. And as you may know, I'm not a real advocate of things that make you feel bad about yourself because it doesn't do much for you. It doesn't actually motivate you in any real way. I know that every time I have looked on Instagram at Fitspo and thought, wow, I really need to get my ass to the gym, usually more often than not, it just leads me to not want to do anything. That brief moment of motivation is totally shame driven and it doesn't actually pan out in any reliable, consistent action. Um, the other thing that you often take for granted when you do upward comparison is we forget that what we see from other people is only a small piece of the picture. I can look at someone's social media account and think this person might be full of travels and adventures and fun and, flirty and all that stuff. But in reality, that's a carefully curated mix of things that they want me to see and they want me to notice about them. So think about what's on your social media. It's typically specifically things that you want people to notice about you and not necessarily the evening you spent in binge watching Stranger Things or the weeks you spent depressed in bed or whatever other things. The times that you wanted to do laundry but didn't. All those mundane things that we all go through that don't actually make it onto our social media. Um, the other thing to think of is um, I don't live in someone else's head. So I can make an assumption based on what I see on the outside. So beyond social media, this is just in person to person relations. I can look at somebody and think, oh my gosh, they're so confident, they got it all together. It must be awesome to be them because they do everything so effortlessly and easy. In reality, because I don't live in their head and I have no idea what goes on behind the scenes, they could be feeling exactly the same way as I feel. They could have everything together when they're out in public and then go home and cry all day. That is actually the story of a lot of successful or seemingly successful people. So it's really, you know, comparison gives us this false impression that we're doing it wrong, when in reality, we have no idea how anybody else is doing it anyways. So there we go. That's the problems with upward comparison. Now on to the sneakier, more subtle downward comparison. This one, downward comparison, is when we look at somebody that we perceive that we are better than and we look down on them. It's a nice little thing we like to do to make ourselves feel better, whether it's, bashing someone privately, like, oh my god, that's the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen, to quote Mean Girls again. Or we can also do it by coming across somebody's hardships, somebody's foibles, somebody's like mistakes, and totally just dismiss it as like, "Ugh, I would never do that. I would never fall victim to that." You see it a lot with people with addiction. I've worked in addiction a lot of years, and over time, I've seen a ton of people think that they're not vulnerable to it. They're like, "Oh my God, who does that? Thank God it's not me. Oh my God, I would never do that." And in reality, all that does is it's a little safety mechanism, and it's me separating from that part of myself that is capable of making that kind of a mistake so that I don't have to feel vulnerable to it. In reality, and this is, my personal opinion, but also it's kind of backed up by a little bit of science. We'll get into that another day. But we all have potential for great things and terrible things. We all have within us this raw potential, and depending on our circumstances, what we bring into this situation, and also just a myriad of other variables, we could be driven to do great things or not so great things. And when we do the downward comparison, we cut ourselves off from that. We think that we're not capable of doing bad things. And so one thing that does is it disconnects us from our humanity. My humanity that allows me to connect with my fellow person. So I otherize myself from someone else's suffering or hardship or mistakes because I don't want to see that potential within myself. So I disconnect from them. I can't understand them. I can't relate to them. Therefore, I probably can't help them or be of any kind of support to them in any real way. And also, the bigger cost is that by cutting off from that part of my humanity, I don't get to learn from someone else's mistakes. I don't get to see that part of myself and understand how that could be brought into my life. By pushing myself away, I keep that part of myself in the corner, but guess what? Just because I put it in the corner doesn't mean that's not there. Doesn't mean it's not sneaking around the corner and waiting for its opportunity. And by me not acknowledging it, not acknowledging the less savory parts of my psyche, I make myself way more vulnerable to it because I'm not prepared. I don't accept that it's a part of me, so I don't deal with things as they come. I don't think I have to because I don't think that part exists because it's over in the corner and I don't have to think about it. But in reality, it is always there. We always have the potential for great things and not so great things. We have to be aware of both at all times because that way we can prepare and understand what's going on in the environment. How can I take care of myself so I don't fall victim to the not so great side? So, lesson learned, comparison is not a good motivator. It's not even realistic, and it can also be extremely harmful. So I recommend that you don't do it. And if you recognize yourself doing it, take stock in what it really is. What are you really comparing? Do you feel bad about yourself today and are you trying to make yourself feel better? Why don't you actually do something to make yourself feel better as opposed to cheap tricks like comparison? This has been another installment of Best Perception. I am Amanda Jaworski. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. You can find me on Instagram at Best Perception. You can also find me on Facebook, also called Best Perception. You can also visit my website if you're looking for therapy and would like to have me as your therapist and live in the state of California. My website is thebestperception.com. Until next time, bye-bye.